Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are crime dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about The Blacklist, Season 10, Episode 19. Another great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So, it probably wasn't until like early to mid part of the episode where it wasn't... Alright, let's run through it first before I really get into it. The fact of the matter is, you knew it had to be something pretty big, considering Reddington called the entire task force and had to meet at the building. And it's just like, you could tell, like I said, this is the end game for, like, especially with everything with Morgana already in our head of like, okay, he's already dismantling his operations in big capacity. So it was like, the fact is, and once again, he's getting nostalgic. He wants to hang out with Dembe again. And he's talking about like, oh, the shade of this building is like a special gray. And Herbie was like, oh yeah, I've looked it up because, you know, I've been bored sometimes. So it's like, you know, it's anvil gray. And it's just like, he's getting nostalgic because he's saying goodbye, which is very meta considering this is the show's coming to an end. So it's interesting how and I think they built the story around that for Red, that this story is coming to an end. Even kind of goes into that a little bit later on with Cooper, but we'll get to that when we get to it. So first and foremost, the fact is that thereafter, there's something, he's like, oh, I heard from a friend of a friend who basically heard that there's a report called the Freeman Report. Basically, it's talking about the vulnerabilities of like the nuclear missile silos that are all across the U.S. and how some of them have not been well kept and others can be tampered with. So if anyone ever got this report, it'd be an issue. That report is being written by a general in the Air Force, a 4-star general in the Air Force, played by the actor who plays Vance in Manifest. So very poetic, obviously formerly of NBC, now, you know, a Netflix show. Interesting. But it's like, how does Red know that at all? And what's his source for it? He's like, I can't really tell you. And it's like, right. It's like, once again, it's just like, there's something you can tell. And even like Cooper's kind of catching it because you have Sia being like, man, this guy is strange, but Cooper's been noticing it more and more. It's like, something's off about Reddington. Like, Wrestler's not really getting too much into it because it's like, man, Red's always been off. But it's like, him and Dembe have really known, because they are the ones who've kind of known him the most. Wrestler's like, knows of Reddington and what he does, but it's like, yeah, like, what's your angle in this? And he's like, he was kind of very cagey around that when Donald asked him about it. But it's like, they ended up talking to someone pretty high up, and she's like, wait, you're not even supposed to know about the Freeman Report. This is like high above your pay grade. Luckily, they got to the general before, because I even love that line where it's like, oh, he took the laptop home, that secure laptop that has the Freeman Report on it because he wants to modify some stuff. And it's like, oh yeah, like taking classified stuff home, top secret files home, I guess is the new thing. I was like, oh, how very, very topical. It's like, yeah, you wrote that line. That line of dialogue was very, very specific. I was like, interesting. Yeah, the robbery attempt didn't go through. And the moment it didn't go through, I was like, that's suspicious. The fact is I get, it's like, right, you don't want to get caught, but also the fact is you didn't actually accomplish the job. I'm like, that's interesting. It almost feels like the attempt was all you needed. And so when it was all said and done, especially when they're like, all right, the surveillance footage from his house was messed with, except, oh, the neighbors just happened to get a new security system in 2 days prior. I was like, that seems like a Red thing. That was what tipped me off of like, this is Red's got some angle in this, because that's too coincidental. And it's just like, oh, like they happen to tamper with like the main and not know it. Like, you're professional enough to tamper with the general security and know about him having in a panic room. Like, you would survey that area, like, you know. So for that to come up last minute like that, once again, 2 days prior, they got that high quality enough that you could recognize and get a clear picture of one of the robbers, and like, dude, that's got Reddington written all over it. So I was like, is this what I think it is? It's like, especially after the Morgana situation, and it turns out it's exactly that. This is, we finally find out what was it, room 417 it's a room in like the I want to say it was like the Capitol building specifically, but it's a room which has all the rooms in, like, well, not all, but quite a few of the rooms in the Capitol building bugged. So all these behind the door conversations from speakers, especially speakers from other countries coming in too. So it's like, this is one of the biggest breaches in like national security. And it's like, it was happening like under everyone's noses. Then there's like a fax machine, which told them about the Freeman file. And it's like, then there's also the thing of, well, then how did Red know about it? It's like, did he intercept this? And it's like, no, especially when they're able to track the one, I forgot the ins and outs on how they did it, but the one person they're aware of, they were able to track them because, God, I don't completely understand it. It's this whole, the cell phone number that's kind of, the number that's at the top of the fax was sold to like a switchboard operation of like, it's a very old school thing that's not operable anymore, but this happened to be one that was still operable. The numbers associated with the switchboard, because it's all analog and older technology. And so, I mean, when it was all said and done, Wrestler and Dembe checked it out, and it's just like looking at everything. It's like, right, this is from this place of the world, this place of the world. Dembe can't help but laugh when he's looking at, hey, these places have been compromised. Room 417 isn't the only one. It's the U.S. based version of it, but there's a version of this room in all these different countries gathering intelligence. And in that moment, Dembe pieced it all together. He was like, this is part of Reddington's operation. I was like, oh my God, he's dismantling another part of his intelligence network. And you're like, dude, I'm like, and once again, the big question is, why is Red doing this? And we'll get to that in a second, but it's like, yeah, it makes perfect sense that you use fax machines, because even Dembe goes back to season 8 when it's like, he's like, I know Red, but I don't know the ins and out of his operation. I know the man, not his operations. I've taken his first real peek into everything was when he was with Reddington and Liz last season, when he showed her basically the backbone to what is the Blacklist, of his intelligence network that helps him make the Blacklist. It's like all of this in conjunction with his own connections in the criminal world is what makes him like the asset that he is. So it's like, right, he basically helped us take down a branch of his operation. No one was arrested. I thought the blind person walking away, like they focused on them a lot. That was someone kind of getting a call to like cut ties and leave. So they didn't think much of it when he walked by. So eventually that note or whatever it is, I guess the last little bit of intelligence they got out of that place before it was shut down, maybe like that's what got sent to Red. Who knows? But for them, it's like, it doesn't make any sense, because now, because Sia recognized this place's name. It has a specific name. I forgot what it was called, but she remembered it because it's a corporation that Morgana ended up making. So it's like, now they have pieced it together, because I was like, right, because even Dembe never found out. We as the audience found out about Morgana being Reddington's, and now we know this 417 room thing, which is not just a US based thing, it's like I said, it's an international thing, that in conjunction with Morgana are all of Reddington's. And it's like, we need an explanation for this. It's also interesting too, because that age-old question of like, right, how'd you find out about the Freeman report? And now it's like, that ended up leading them to finding out about the Capitol building being bugged, and now they're asking Harold, who is this source? And he's like, right, I can't really say, because if I tell you, it compromises their ability to, because the moment everyone outside of those who know about the deal find out about Red, they're going to dismantle everything and be like, no, it's going to destroy any future intelligence he could give them. And so it's like, right. So Cooper, we'll go to the other side of the story soon enough, but let's follow through with like Cooper and Red. And Red, does what he does, and which bothers Cooper to no end, that Red never gives a straight answer. He kind of goes on these soliloquies, usually using, in this particular case, he talks about President Garfield. He was like, he was assassinated, and he lived for 2 months before he died. So basically, everyone like in the medical field, the technology field, all work together to try and save his life. Graham Bell ended up creating the metal detector, I guess he was trying to say, to try and locate maybe it wasn't Graham Bell, maybe it was someone else, but he was like, someone made a metal detector trying to find the bullet in him. Then there was also to help with kind of like fight off sepsis. They basically had a tube kind of put in him, but that ended up leading to an infection that would eventually kill him. So some people are saying like, right, because they were never able to find the bullet. And it's like, if they, because it was lodged in his abdomen, and they're like, some people are saying like, if everyone hadn't tried so hard to save him, then maybe he would have survived. And Cooper's like, he's like, I know what you're thinking, Harold. Like, when am I going to get to the point? And it's like, you can never give me a straight answer in all these years. And for Red, it's like, I honestly can't find the words. That he's just like, some things have to come to an end. Like, it's beyond our controls. Things just do come to an end, no matter how much you want to fight for them to kind of keep going. It's just for something new to be born. So it's like, right, in this particular metaphor, as I think his operation, the Blacklist, is the Andrew the President Garfield of it all, I think. But because it goes back to what I was bringing up before, because Cooper's like, you're exposing yourself. It's like, right, the only way, like, you're dismantling the thing that makes you valuable as an asset, your intelligence network. You're having us, like, and it's like, for Red, it's like, right, my people, he's like, if an operation is shut down in the criminal world, what do those people do? They scatter to the winds and they find new jobs. So to prevent anyone else from grabbing up these people, he's basically forcing them into retirement. And how do you force them into retirement? Not only do you have the operation shut down, you make them feel like the operation has to be shut down because they are being like closed in on by the FBI. So these people are less likely to go out there in the world and, like I said, get other criminal jobs. You're kind of taking them off the criminal board in a sense. It seems, at least that's my understanding what Red was saying. So it's like, right, I gave all these people a nice pension cut and they're all in good retirement, so they're less likely to participate and find work in every aspect, like less likely because no one else will know about them. So no one else in the criminal world will try looking for them and trying to acquire them for work. And those who will work for Red will be like, well, we've got this good retirement and we don't want to peek our heads out too much because the FBI was already onto us. So if we put ourselves back out there in the criminal world, we might get caught. So it's kind of this interesting, catch-22 isn't I don't think it's the right phrasing I'm looking for, but it's kind of like it's an interesting, delicate balance that Red created to kind of keep all these players off the field now in any capacity. Like I said, at least that's my understanding of it. But it's like, yeah, like the only reason why he's able to keep doing what he's doing is because of the immunity agreement. But Red's like, yeah, but that immunity agreement, I basically destroyed it when I got into your system. So it's like, yeah, but the AG and all of them don't know about that. And, eventually they will find out, and Red's fine with that because Red's made it seem like, right, I don't want another Wu Jing to happen where someone could, I don't know if this was always Red's plan the moment because he knew about Wu Jing for a while, and I think he saw this as his end game plan. I think he saw like, right, Wu Jing presented, he wasn't the threat. He was a representation of a future threat of like, this was always going to be a delicate balance of this thing could always fall apart at any moment in time. It can never last forever because nothing lasts forever, but something has to die almost like for something new to be born in its place. And so I think Red is positioning himself to be back what he was. He's cutting ties with anything related to him and because that immunity agreement doesn't exist anymore. So it can't be used against, Panabaker nor the FBI, which will, like I said, we'll get on that side of it, specifically the task force that can't be used against them. And so now it is a situation of when it's all said and done, there's plausible deniability to some extent, and now it can be used in a capacity of this task force can go back to hunting Reddington because he's going to be out there and win. Like, I don't know whether he's going to remove himself from the board because either he himself is dying and this was his last breath. This whole thing, his whole machinations, his magnum opus is going to be this whole thing, this whole final season is his final breath as a criminal. Like I said, whether he is dying and goes off and dies, and the mystery of Raven Reddington still being out the world, that legacy, that legend of the criminal world is still out there, and it protects the task force because it nulls any connection between them. He severs it so that they can still keep doing the same good work that they've always done, taking down bad guys, because part of me had wondered, well, it was never going to, like, Liz was supposed to take over the Blacklist. What if he gives it to the FBI now? Like, what if he gives it to Cooper and them to take over? Like, but he's hampered his intelligence network by doing what he's done. So I think it is, I'm putting a stop to the Blacklist, but maybe I'm going to give you something, some form of the Blacklist to help you catch any future criminals out there in the world. I'll give you the foundational means necessary to continue that good work. And it's going to be this task force alone that has access to this. You know, you no longer need me, the man in the hat, to kind of do this. You guys become the men in the hat, and this is your operation. You become the new form of the Blacklist, I guess. You know, so that's my understanding. That's kind of my speculation on all of this, because Red's trying to make himself enemy number one again. So how this ties into, I mean, not how, obviously how it ties into everything where Jonathan is being forced by, not forced, but Arthur's really pushing like, hey, your buddy wrestler, he's not a good guy. Hey, I'm hoping that he's a good guy, but you don't want to take any chances, so I need you to basically tap his phone. The judge is kind of giving us the A-OK about all this. It's like, right, you know about Agent Keene. She was on the run with Reddington, so it's like, right, these connective threads. It's like, right, the task force has been corrupted by Reddington, and they basically work for him, so I need you to bug his phone. And the sad thing is he felt so bad about it, where it's like, you're asking me, an addict, to betray another addict, that addict who's helping me. Like, you know, he's my sponsor, he's helping me, you know, and that's the thing, that's the sad thing. Arthur didn't think about how much of turmoil this would cause John. Like, he saw how torn up he was about it, but it's still a thing of, you should have never asked a man who's still fairly early in his recovery, that any setbacks and something stressful like this, something that twists him upside down like this, could backslide him. And Arthur was so dogged about his pursuit of the truth that it's just like he didn't think about who he would hurt along the way. Because he's shown to be a good guy, but the problem is that you get so blinded by your pursuit of the truth that, like, it's not, I'm not saying like some truth shouldn't be pursued, but it is the thing of, you just don't know who you're hurting along the way, at what your, the fallout of your actions. You never think about the consequences of your action, because you're like, right, I am part of this noble cause, and there's no way there could be any wrong in what I'm doing, essentially. He could never see anything wrong with what he's doing. That's kind of the point I'm making. So when it's all said and done, Jonathan convinced, he lied to Donald and is like, right, can I use your phone? Because like, he's trying to make it seem like, oh, things are bad between me and Jill. Like, she's trying to hide money from me. So I snapped at her, and she won't answer the phone if I call on my phone. Like, if I call from yours, that was his excuse to get Donald to unlock his phone so he can tap it. And it's so, because for him, it's like, man, you're a good guy. It's like, especially where it's like, Donald was talking from personal experience of, like, no matter how complicated things are, all you have to do is speak your feelings. Like, and he had to make that clear to Liz, considering everything that went down in season 8 and how they were on opposite sides, kind of yet again. But the difference is there's feelings between us now on top of us being on opposite sides, versus like, yeah, you were like my partner who is in the wind and on the run with Reddington. And so at the end of the day, Jonathan's like, right, Donald's a good guy. And obviously Arthur kind of felt bad about it. He's like, I hope I'm right about this gamble. And it paid off, sadly. And so he heard part of the call. The thing is, he didn't get all of the context, but he's got enough of it to know Reddington bugged the Capitol building. Now he also knows, like, right, it's worse than I thought, because the government signed off on making the most wanted man in human in history, making him the a CI and everything, and protecting him, especially hearing Harold say, like, hey, we're basically, we could be brought up on treason. The fact is we helped him build his empire, yada, 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 so on and so forth. And that's all he's focused on. He tries to call up Jonathan, hey, I was right. The fact of the matter is, basically, you'll be a hero for doing what you've done. But Jonathan he didn't pick up his phone. He ends up, like, taking pills. He slides back. I was worried that he was going to overdose himself, but Donald comes up and says, hey, you want to go get some, I found a new, meeting place we can go. You want to go? And he's like, yeah. I think we will sadly find out that Jonathan, like, either he's going to confess to Donald, or he's going to die of an overdose because of what, because of Arthur. But I completely forgot to add this in here. I don't know where I'm going to add this in, but I wanted to include this information. I do love that the person who was selling the cameras, like this, oh, you won this sweepstakes or whatever, like for the cameras for that house. I love that it was Glenn's mom that gave it to them. So I thought, I was like, oh, like her, maybe potentially her final appearance. I was like, I was like, hey, that's super dope. It was her that ended up giving them the camera. Like, it's definitely going to be interesting to see how this plays out. We are at the end of the road, ladies and gentlemen, 3 episodes. To some technical degree, you could say the next episode, episode 20, it's technically the penultimate episode. Really, it's 21, but 21 and 22 are going to be airing back to back. I was wondering, is it going to be like a 2-hour final episode of episode 22? But it's like, no, it's because episode 21 and 22 are going to be back to back. So it's the final episode before the finale. Because it's like, they're going to be probably like a part 1 and part 2. So it's kind of a package deal of 21 and 22, but still. So that's why I'm saying it's kind of a pseudo penultimate episode. But what goes down next episode is going to set the stage for how this all comes to an end. I'm so excited. Once again, it's been a wild ride, because maybe it's because the pandemic kind of messed with my head, because the show had to take quite a big break after episode 2 when it came to season 8. So, like, to me, like, because this show, once again, hasn't taken many breaks. I think the show only took, like, maybe 1 or 2 breaks this season. I think a lot of television hasn't taken as many breaks, I think, just because of the strike and stuff like that. Or, I don't know, maybe because it is the final season, they're, like, rolling through it and trying not to put any big... There haven't been, like I said, maybe I'm just not remembering, but I don't think there have been any... Maybe 1 or 2 weeks is the most it's been between any season. Usually the show takes quite a bit. Well, to be fair, it's also starting later in the year in a TV season than it normally would, because it's around like October-ish is when it normally-ish starts. So it started like a couple months later than normal. So if I remember correctly. Either way, I'm so excited to see where the next episode takes us with all of this. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.